Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Controller Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast, episode 145. Is Pokémon Scarlet and Violet getting a free pass on performance with me, George? And as always, this week, joined by RGT, Bobby, and welcoming back Seb. All those guys are Ash Ketchums to my Ash Tray. How's it going?
Good. Yeah.
Pretty well.
Okay, let's do a round robin. In fact, what a better way to get associated is if I just ask you straight away, what if... Odders, it's getting near Christmas, don't think I've forgotten about you. Grip the wheel. Guys, what have you been playing? And let me spin the randomator around. Seb, welcome back to the show. Good to have you here. What, since we last spoke to you, or just in the last gaming week, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing the Forspoken demo a little bit, trying to get a little read on that, whether or not that's going to be a day one buy or whether or not that's going to be a pass, whether or not the dialogue is going to indeed be a hamper for most people in that game. I've been reviewing games for the Pro Nerd Report, like the Witch Night and different things like that, and I think, I've completed in Platinum God of War, so I feel very accomplished in that aspect. So right now I'm going back and I'm playing The Witcher 3, which is a game I never gave a fair shot to because I've only played like for 5 hours of that before. So I'm playing the next gen version of The Witcher 3 right now.
And how does it compare to your last gen playthrough when you attacked it for those 4 or 5 hours?
Oh, it's leagues better. Like, it is leagues better. I think it looks more like a current game as opposed to like a early Xbox One game, even though it was, kind of like a 2015 game. This kind of feels very much like more modern and it feels less sluggish. The other games kind of felt like I was almost like forcing Geralt to kind of do things that didn't necessarily fit his play style and everything like that. It felt very sluggish. It felt like I was running through the mud. In this one, everything feels crisp. Everything feels proper. The frame rate is like chef's kiss. So it's pretty good so far. Like watching the Netflix show and then coming back and playing this and having more of a understanding of the Witcher world helps too. So it's been pretty fun so far.
Good. And take me back to, you mentioned Forspoken. Based on your playthrough of the demo right now, is that going to be a day one purchase, or is it going to be a no thank you, mummy?
I think for a lot of people, the dialogue is going to be a hurdle for them. Like it is very much written in a Saints Row Millennium meets like that Saints Row humor kind of vibe mixed in with maybe some of the humor from Cyberpunk in a very Middle Earth kind of vibe, like Middle Earth kind of aesthetic, and I think that's going to throw a lot of people off. But if you can get past that, this is a very fun game. Like I haven't played a game that had so much depth in like the controls in which you can like use like different spells and different things, aspects like that in a very long time. If you can get past that, you're going to be in for a good time with this game.
I've had it on pre-order for quite some time. I don't know if it's Michael Petit, but I'd imagine I ought to get that demo downloaded to see if it is. Is there anything else that you want to discuss before we spin the randomator and decide which either our other American cousin or whether Suffolk's finest is going to go next?
No. I'll think I'll come back with a report after I actually mow through Witcher 3.
Okay. All right. Well, let's sandwich between two fine, young-looking American men. Suffolk's finest young man. RGT, what have you been playing?
Sounds like a dream come true to me, that. Yes.
God. Don't push back. Just, okay. What?
I've literally been playing one game hard for the last couple of weeks, and that is still Harvestella. Yeah, that's. I mean, you look at the review scores of that game; they're quite unfair, really. I think that game is definitely grand. I'm about 70 hours in so far, and that's on chapter 5, so I'm halfway. But it's just so easy to play and so relaxing to play, but also the combat is spot on. I mean, it's Square Enix, so it's going to be, but I mean, it's the But I think a lot of people who are into their JRPGs, if you're a big JRPG fan, which I haven't been in the past, you'll probably find it a fairly basic game. Your magic and bits and pieces is that's like an introduction to a JRPG, which is ideal for me. The farming side, if you're into your farming games, is very simplistic. It's just a very simplistic Stardew Valley, same premise, but just done very basically. But together they just work brilliantly. You can harvest your food, cook your meals, different meals. You can get different HP and different health from you, take them with you when you go off on your quests. You then got your energy there to keep eating your food, to keep your energy up. Really well done. The stories really intrigued me. Real different story. It's took a bit of a twist now. I got to chapter 5. Really enjoying that. I'd recommend it to anyone. Absolutely loving it. It's a fantastic, and that's just completely consumed any gaming time I've had is Harvestella.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think is there an end game in Harvestella, or is it just keep going till the cows come home? What you got?
I think there is an end game. I mean, there was a few of the reviews I read before I bought it said there was a bit of a heightened. It got quite hard as you went on. They found it quite a big jump, but I haven't found that at all because the side quests are quite cleverly linked to the story. So I've always done the side quests. I spent 10 hours doing side quests, then I did the next story mission. So you're always powered up for them. So I've never had any problems with that. And I really do want to see the end of the story. I'm really enjoying the story. I think it's really well written. I mean, some people have complained there's no real voice acting in it. So there's quite a lot of text to scroll through when you're on missions talking to people. But I've enjoyed reading it. That's not a story I would read in a book, So yeah, really good. And I want to get that end game. And I want to see how the story pans out. Really, really good.
Okay. Oh. Any thoughts? Have you guys come across Harvestella before? So, Bobby, are you aware of this game?
I'm aware of it because RGT. I never really heard of it before.
Okay. Seb, have you managed to dance your fingers across the joypad while playing Harvestella?
I've played about 30 hours of it, and other people who have played the game have told me it takes about 40 to 50 hours to just mainline the main story. So it is a very meaty game. But from my impressions is it's a very spot on game if you like that genre. If you really enjoy that farming and RPG, JRPG type genre, then this is going to be a game that's going to appeal to a lot of people. If you're not into the farming or Stardew Valley-esque aspects of the game, then this isn't going to be for you. I don't think this game is going to change your mind in that regard.
Interesting. Well, you fit very neatly into that category, RGT. That's probably you summed up as a gamer, Stardew Valley maniac.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as soon as I saw that's what attracted me to the game. As soon as I saw there was farming, I thought, hello. Harvest what?
If only this was a video show. If you could see the faces that Harvestella's making RGT pull.
Yeah.
I mean, for a very small skew of people who grew up in Britain, it looked a little bit like a Carry On character there for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that very quickly and succinctly put to bed, then we can now turn to the king of platinums. Finds himself in the top 10 of platinum collectors. Keeps himself very quiet, but we've got to ask Bobby boy, what have you been playing? You beautiful man.
Thank you. So I got the platinum in God of War Ragnarok. That was really good. I didn't expect to get emotional, but I did for some reason. I started getting choked up, and he was looking at me like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "Nope." And then I said, "Yep," because it was too late for me. Why did I get so emotional? I have no idea. Maybe my father, thinking about my stepfather, thinking about if I had a kid, all the emotions running through, how the total change in Kratos' character. I don't know. It all just hit me, I guess, at once. So I thought it was an amazing game. I'm really still thinking about my game of the year because that was like a personal experience. But then playing 200 hours of Elden Ring with my stepfather was also kind of special. So I did that, and then I'm helping my friend Marlon now, my boy Marlon. play Elden Ring.
How is your boy Marlon? Because he's become like his own individual character in the show. How is Marlon?
He's doing okay. His game time is not as it used to be because he moved a little further away now, so we don't have that much time. And Elden Ring's like you can't just put an hour in. Like Sniper 5, we could play for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Elden Ring, you need to listen, tell the wife, go shopping, go eat with your friends. We need to put some game time into this. But we knocked out as much as we could. And then I finally got the platinum for Alienation. I was stuck in one trophy. I just couldn't be asked anymore to do it. It was just too annoying. And then I had a couple beers. I put on some music. And I just turned the game off, listened to music, and I just managed to do it with a random kid that joined my game. And I got to level 30 in hardcore mode, and it popped, and I deleted that sucker immediately.
That's the twin stick shooter by, is it Housemark, or am I going up the wrong?
Yeah. It's not a bad game. Like you have fun with it. If you have friends, it's not bad. But just to get to level 30 in hardcore, it's like, oh my God, because any mistake you gotta start over. And I died at level 25, and that kind of killed my flow. I died because something happened in the game. I don't know. I transported somehow into a deathbed, and I died. So that was kind of aggravating. It was weird. I think it was a glitch because I was with somebody else, and they were too far ahead of me. In this game, if you go too far ahead, you transport to the guy's area. And I was just in a cluster bomb of, guns and bombs, whatever. But with this time I did it, I took my time. I did it slow. And then I think, I still have time for gaming, but I really want to knock out all the DLC for Zombie Army 4. So I purchased the latest season pass. There's a few DLCs I haven't done. So I said, let me just get that out of the way so I can delete that game because it's 60 Gs or something, 60 gigs. I want to get off my system.
So Robert, I got a follow-up question for you. As another guy who actually teared up and cried in God of War, I can completely understand, by the way, of getting emotional in that game. The writing and just the way that everything feels like it has weight to it. The game's amazing. It's simply amazing. But as a person who platinums as many games as you, I wonder, do you have your PlayStation 2022 wrap up? Did you look at the stats for all that? What was that like for you this year?
I did. I got a picture of it too. I didn't play as many hours as I was in last year because COVID. But I still went in there. I think let's see, I have 856 hours played. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, it was. Considering I work full time, and I have to go to job, it's a lot. Yeah. Elden Ring, I played 212 hours. That's by far my biggest game this year. And then, I played 35 games this year, according to this.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad. That's pretty good. I like the wrap up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's nice. Yeah, I think that's one of the best wrap up feature, one of the best features for fans that PlayStation does all year.
Yeah. I like the hours into how many hours you play for each game now. You can track that. That's pretty cool.
It made me realize that this year's version of MLB obviously ticked all my happy places because that was my most, even though I don't know how many hours have sunk into Forbidden West, MLB still came out on top with its chest out. I did not expect that, but kind of
funny
also
with me, the FIFA games over the years, I used to be 400-500 hours a year, and I've just gone down and down and down. I'm now around about 200-hour mark. Whether that's because I always thought the games were getting better each year, but I'm obviously not. So whether it's more games I'm playing instead, or I just use it as a bit of a palate cleanser between games, I don't know. But I've actually gone down on FIFA every year, which is strange.
Is that still your most played game every year?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Most. I think I put 280 hours. I think into FIFA.
Coincidentally, it seems like the three of us had all put in a sports game as our number one because I'm NBA 2K 2K, and that's my most played game. So that, and then it's Horizon Forbidden West at 103 hours. But I thought it was coincidental that all three of us had put in like a shitload of hours on a sports game. Like each sport kind of grabbed us in a different way. Oh, sorry, George. George is just flapping his arms. He's like, "No, now I got to do the timestamp."
It
No,
wasn't
you've done
me
a
this time.
swarm.
These damn Americans.
No, you've sworn. Oh, I'll just bleep it all out. It's fine. Do you know what? It's Christmas time. I'm going to leave it in. See if I get an irate message from my mother now, I think we've made it. The postbag will literally be bulging. It's what we need. Seb, as you were, don't let my hand gestures throw out your flow.
No, it's all good. I would like to apologize on behalf of the American half of the show for
We're the worst, man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, does that wrap up? Because shall I begin my smorgasbord of the most eclectic mix? Since we've done an episode, had to miss an episode, got a little bit busy. I have played probably 2 hours of God of War. I'm really enjoying it, but because I've played it in such sort of sporadic, because Little Big Workshop came into my life, I took this big break from it, and I went back into it. It was like, oh man, when sometimes when you're playing a game and you were all over it, I felt like I was unkillable, and now all of a sudden I don't even know which way to hold the controller. So I need to go back to that and go back to some more sort of user-friendly levels just to hone my skills back in. Then I can go back where I was. So Little Big Workshop carried on with its tendrils around my throat. I've got one last thing to do, but I've had to completely turn my factory upside down to get it to the production level for this one order, which, to be honest, I don't know if I've got the patience for, but I'll keep pushing in there. What else have I played? More Chase Horizon, finished the Ayrton Senna DLC. I have to say, although I remarked before that game wasn't very realistic, it's still very fun. It was never sold as realistic. Only someone like me would rock up expecting it to be realistic, and that probably shows what an idiot I am. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. The little stories of Senna's career as you go through, I think, were quite poignant. Using a game that's similar to Monaco GP to do tribute to him, I think, was actually quite a classy move. I've played. I've been playing. I am a very naughty boy. I've got more fingers in more gaming pies than a leper on a cookery course right now. I've dipped my fingers into Subnautica. And yeah, that started off as a little bizarre loop of just diving out the bell, going down and grabbing a couple of bits and then getting back in like, oh, crikey, yeah, shaking myself off and trying to work out how to collect the different minerals. It's basically No Man's Sky at sea. It's basically Minecraft for bigger boys. But there's something quite unique about the underwater world and just the calmness of the initial reef that you're in for that environment. And I've started pushing out to the edges now where radiation from the ship that you crash land on has sort of infected the sea, so you can't go any further until you get a radiation suit. It's gated through its progression, but at the same token, just enough to give you, because when you're swimming around, you upgrade your flippers and you upgrade your O2 tanks, you can go in further, and you can upgrade it again. And you kind of halfway through a cave system and you look at your oxygen meter and you're like, oh, I've gone a little bit too far. But there's something cool that I really want. So you kind of grab it and then you're swimming back like crazy. And I've actually got this system now where it's like an inflatable bag. So you can flick to it on the inventory and press it. And one of the coolest feelings is this thing goes and you rock it up to the surface. I think Friday I was playing it and I swam down all the way down. I was like, oh, this is great. So I got myself lined up so it was a straight dive, straight down. I thought, right, I'm going down there. So I swam down to this sort of abandoned pod and I got down there and it was like, oxygen warning. I was like, uh-oh. So I kind of loosely grabbed but couldn't really finish what I was doing. And I blasted that thing. And by the time it had finished, it was still, like the surface was still some distance away. So then it was like this moment of panic. And you have like a small window of time of fading out of consciousness where the screen goes black and you're like, oh, I've done it.
Oh,
and then you can crest just above the water and and the screen comes back to color again. You're like, oh my goodness gracious me. That was a scary do. but I like it. I'm going back down.
That's awesome.
And the game, there are little bits of story peppered along the way to keep pulling you in. And I think it's a nice game to have sort of on the low key over Christmas. Callisto Protocol played a little bit more of. I've heard there's been some patches that have improved the input speeds and the movement of the character in battle itself, which I did find kind of frustrating because I can only liken the action in that game more akin to individual fight night round 3 fights where you're kind of moving your character around. You can dodge and you can weave. Your legs aren't locked to the floor like that game, but they might as well be for the intents and purposes of the sort of intensity of the battle. So you're moving around and trying to move out the way. You're trying to execute that perfect dodge, because if you get the perfect dodge executed, it slows time round. You can get behind the enemy and you can really club them down. So I need to go back to that and check it now that it's patched the combat a little bit. I would be intrigued to see if it just makes it a little bit more user-friendly, because I know some of the bigger boy gamers, Bobby, Seb, probably everyone on this show bar me, a little bit more into that sort of dodge and weave type mechanic for the gameplay. But I find it at times maybe a bit restrictive. It's got a strong story narrative and I want to progress forward, but after 16 attempts of a low-level bad guy, one wonders in the early game if that's worth it. Now, I did check some reviews and they did say that as you get further in the game, it kind of gets easier as you level up. Yeah, fair enough. But these first few levels, why don't you give me some lower level bad guys so I can actually try and work out the timing just a little bit. But, and then also guilty confession, as if, George, you got enough games on the go there? Yep, still playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I went back to that and I'm now clearing up everything. I think I've just got the trials to do. I don't find them that entertaining, and it's frustrated that they gate the platinum, but it is what it is. And I noticed there was a couple of exclamation marks I hadn't done, just little errands, not side stories, errands. And I like finding those because it's like, it feels like I've still got a little bit of life left in this carcass I've literally picked clean, bar the element of the game that I don't like, which is the hunting trials. I just find them very restrictive. And I just want the creatures that I'm going after to be immediately available in the hunting area. Don't mess me around and throw in like 6 other creatures in there. Let me just go straight in, do what I need to do and get out. And that's as simple as that needs to be. They could have them in like stables and things they release. That could have had a little bit more lore. If I was any good at this, I'll be writing story games, but I'm not. So there we go. Last confession. And I'm still on the fence. I went in. I've been talking about it for a while. I know those that listen will remember this. F1 Manager. Oh yeah. I keep looking at it online. It's $60, and I'm like, no, that's for that. It's too much. I walked into a physical store yesterday. On the shelf, even though the Christmas elf on my shoulder, the good elf on my shoulder was like, it's a bit close to Christmas to be buying a game, mate. It is a bit. And then the other one was like, you're on vacation now. Leave, call it what you like. Do it. Before I knew it, I was in the car with a copy of it in my hand, storming home to install. Got home. It really is, underneath all the graphics, it really is the iOS, Android, F1 Manager game from about 6 years ago. There's not...
Oh, no.
There's not a great deal of depth, but it's wrapped up. The actual management of the race is actually quite exciting. My first race, for the first 10 laps, Leclerc, because I chose to go with Ferrari because of reasons, and they, the first 10 laps, I was like, well, this game's not playing out very realistically at all, because for the first 10 laps, it was literally neck and neck, overtake after overtake after overtake. I was like, if this was an F1 race, this would be an absolute banger. And it was very exciting. Then I pitted to try and get some space. And I thought to myself, all this fighting is cool, but it's slowing down my overall race. Swapping places, fighting, defending, it's slowing down your pace. Pit now, clean air, go for it. All F1 terms. People who kind of loosely follow F1, they were like, yeah. So I did that, still came second. Next race, qualified pole, managed to retain the win. Boom, all the way through. That felt a good feeling. So I've already got a win under my bag. I've already got a 1-2 in the bag for qualifying. Things are going well. although my pace of development as I work out that side of the game is going to be troublesome. So sitting there for a whole F1 race at normal speed, probably not everyone's cup of tea. You can speed it up and slow it down. What I would say is, if you find it for cheap enough, if it goes in the store, digital store sale, and you're mildly interested in F1, do it. If you're not, avoid it like the plague. This thing will probably kill you from the eyebrows down if you're not even remotely interested in F1. You've had
How long is a race?
Probably an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness!
But you can be in at normal flow speed. I know. You know, that's the sort of level of patience, dedication I've got. You can go in and you can literally adjust every element. So you can say quicken up the pace, fry the tires, go for this spot. At the same time, you can also say, but you need to be careful with your fuel, conserve fuel. I know these are weird messages. If I was a driver and I was driving down the road and they were like, yeah, speed up, mate. Also, though, conserve fuel. Right. Okay.
I'm going to need a weekly update on this now.
What, on this game?
I'm
vested into your career.
Okay.
And when I used to play the F1 normal game on, the career mode. When I used to use my sim rig a lot, and they used to do 25% races on there. You could do 25%, 50. So if it's 50 lap race, you done, 17 laps, whatever, and then you still had your tyres degradation would come down to fit into that race time. So you'd change after 5 laps rather than 15 laps, and then you'd do a 25% race. But full race that's quite dedication to sit there for an hour and a half.
Thing is, if you've got space on the track, so you've managed to find yourself a window where you're not on the back of anybody and no one's on the back of you, you can tell the drivers just to bring down the aggression a little bit, go for normal. You don't go too crazy on the tires or the fuel, and then you can skip the story. You get the visuals, the 3D animated visuals, if you're in anything from 1 to 2 speed. If you go above that, it flicks to a map and basically moves icons around. That's basically what the iOS game was back in the day. The Sega released, I think, F1 Manager game. Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's lots of things, if they were to make a second one, that I would love to see. Like, I want to see more animations. I want to see more factory stuff. But other than that, no, if it was $24.99, I think. If it had been $12.99, that's the price point this game needed to be right from the get-go. Although, could they have made it for that? It's doubtful. But yeah, Frontier, they're good at the management games. So yeah, looking forward to just continuing with that. It's a nice one. I don't know what it is with me in recently gaming, but I had my little big workshop experience, and I just wanted that to continue in a really nice way. The controlling the little people, the management, the leaving it going while the simulation takes effect, while you pull on little levers to change the outcome. I find quite an interesting little thing. Haven't found anything to compete with Little Big Workshop yet. And again, Seb, question. I didn't get the chance to ask you this. Have you played Little Big Workshop?
No, not at all. Not at all.
There's an indie you slept on, pal. Get that downloaded. It might not be your cup of tea, but just a quiet little Christmas game playing in the background, especially with the little Santa hats on during the month of December. To quote you, and I want a T-shirt with this on it, Chef's Kiss.
Okay.
It is that good. After my rather long diatribe of some very unusual and bizarre and games that don't really fit together very well, anyone else want to chime in before we go drag out the news?
I got a myriad of questions. George, I love the Fight Night comparison for Callisto Protocol, because like when I was playing it, I happened to feel like it felt like a lot like Punch Out. Like the way in Punch Out you were almost planed into the floor and your upper body was the way you kind of maneuvered everything around you. In that way, Callisto Protocol feels almost like a 360 game, like 360 PS3 game, like gameplay wise.
I would completely agree with that.
Very modern aesthetics. Like I think the game looks gorgeous, but I feel like it plays like a game that's almost a generation or even 2 generations behind at this point. But
I think the game I likened it to most was Chronicles of Riddick Butcher Bay. I know I know, that whole orange vibe, you're creeping around with the shiv. It's not exactly the same game. It's like a cross between that and Dead Space, but without what Dead Space had for me, that hook, was that pistol combat where you sliced and diced limbs. Callisto Protocol so far is not that game at all, and it's much more a visceral melee-based game. Like, you can get a pistol, but the pistol's really just for like an additional damage multiplayer play. You can get them into a position where you can use the pistol, and I wish the pistol at that point put them down. But sometimes it doesn't. And you're like, oh, God, I just need you to go down so I can do this next. I know we want the combat in games. I know we like combat, but sometimes if it's presented to me in the way this is, it's not, no, give me something else I can get my teeth into. So that's Callisto Protocol. Interesting game.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about it is, for me, is like, everyone kind of feels like they want this game to be a AAA game and almost want this game to be on the same level of Dead Space. And then I think the narrative has been kind of like, the narrative has fallen off that this is an indie game, technically. This is this game's first studio as well. So I'm like, kudos for them for making something that is this level of polish for their first outing, even though it doesn't necessarily mesh well with a lot of gamers' play styles, so to speak. I think this is a good first outing for that studio, and I hope they continue to iterate from this.
Yeah, I think based on that, it looks great. They've got some good talent associated with it. Matey from Transformers, can never remember his name. Matey out of Days Gone. Matey who was also Star Killer. He's been in a myriad of games. He's in there, and yeah, it's got all the parts, but when they get thrown in the cake tin and mixed around, what comes out is not what I expected it to taste like.
Yeah, it's almost raisin-esque.
It's the most confusing of all fruits. Absolutely, yeah. So Callisto Protocol, I don't know. It might be one of those games that just always haunts me that I never go back to. I think if you could dedicate the time to it, sit down, say, right, 8 hours straight, this is having it. And regardless of how bored I get learning these combat encounters, I'm putting myself through it. I think if you put the time in, I think the timings would probably become quite obvious. But even on a PS5, the load times between death and then getting back in the game is long. And in a game where someone as average as me dies as often as someone like me would do in Callisto Protocol, that's a little frustrating because it just takes the wind out of the game. You're like, oh, I'm excited to play this. Let me sit down. Boom, death animation, as grotesque as it is, fine, it's over. Spit me back in the game. In 2020, whatever we live in now, I feel like Buck Rogers, seeing that spinning circle on what's basically a PS4 game just gets my goat up. Yeah. If I'm honest. Just gets my goat up. No need for it.
It reminds me of the load times from Jedi Fallen Order. Like how long those load times were originally for that Star Wars game. That's what it kind of reminds me of. My last question for you though is like, do you think Little Big Workshop is the best like simulation game that you've ever played, like management simulation?
Ooh, that's I don't know. Over here, we've got an investigative journalist called Jeremy Paxman, and I feel like you're the Jeremy Paxman of the show because you just that's a big one because I've got memories of like Transport Tycoon, Railroad Tycoon, 1 and 2. Civ. Does Civ fall under those categories? Does games like Megalomania fall under that category? I don't know. From a sort of you controlling a workforce point of view, probably the only thing that's come this close has probably been Transport Tycoon, or to a lesser degree, maybe Frontier's own Planet Coaster. But Little Big Workshop, indie game, right out of nowhere. I've always been intrigued by the art style. I didn't know it was such a vicious hook of a game underneath it. And maybe it only grabs me because I'm sort of a weirdo. I don't know. But if that game had a sequel,
the little workers,
the little guys, they're just, I don't know what it is about them. They're just so beautiful to watch. And when they're kind of working away at the wood and then they're all meeting together to assemble it, it's just there's something about it. I did a quick look at the studio's got another game coming out, I think on PC. I think it's a little bit different concept, but it's more like a space colonization game, still with these little cute characters from what I've seen. I'm all for it. Let's see what they can pull out the bag next. But as their first game, as a teaser, as a little bit of proof of concept, not only them as a studio, but interactivity. Don't get me wrong, it's super flawed at times. The bigger the workshop gets, the longer the save goes on, the more polluted your little big workshop gets. And if you're playing on fast forward, which you need to do because real time, practically real time, and I haven't got 6 weeks to wait for a moped to get built. It comes with some flaws, but keep your factory simple, keep the process simple, and you'll get away with it. If, like me, you've turned into some sort of Henry Ford of the Little Big Workshop world with my Spinosaurus, as I call it, with everything feeding into the central nervous assembly station area. I think in my own words, I've realised that I've got far too deep on Little Big Workshop. I think on that note, it's time for the news. We scour the very darkest region of the internet to bring you the latest stories. First up, I'll jump in. I've got my teeth in. So one last inevitable journey. You'd best make sure you're sitting down for this one. Apparently, Naughty Dog is making The Last of Us Part 3 right now. We know it's hard to believe, sarcasm aside, a reliable insider has claimed the studio's head honcho, Neil Druckmann, is busy beavering away at the third entry in the celebrated series. Viewer None, who is credited with many movie and video game-related leaks, posted the hot gossip on Twitter. Viewer Anon said, well, I'm not watching anything, so Dr. Uckman's next game is The Last of Us Part 3, which is currently in production at Naughty Dog. Apparently, Part 3 will be the studio's next major game following the arrival of the much-anticipated multiplayer outing, currently known as The Last of Us Factions. Viewer Anon tells us another user that has a different studio is handling the Uncharted franchise. Again, I think we all thought this was happening in the background, but this is a little bit of more concrete news about what's going on. News of the third Last of Us game isn't too big a surprise. Druckmann himself said the outline of its story had already been written, though it wasn't in production at this stage. If this rumour is to be believed, the developer has now begun work on Part 3. Many fans of the studio have been hoping for something new. We imagine there will be a team within Naughty Dog secretly working on new ideas, but it sounds like we'll be getting more from the smash hit series first. Are you excited for the third Last of Us game to close, in history suggests, the right way to close off a trilogy? Guys, I mean, my thoughts on that are, we need a Part 3. Without going too far into it, I know that, fan ira went crazy because of the actions in the beginning of 2, but to those who haven't played...
That's life, bro.
That is life. And to those who haven't played all the way through, I know a lot of people, as soon as the spoilers started coming out, and I don't think we want to do that here because I think it's one of the biggest hooks in the game. And if you've avoided it this far, I don't want my name associated with the guy that ruined Last of Us Part 2 for you. I would suggest just play it. But if I'd gone, I'm not playing it, I can't believe they've done that, that's totally unacceptable to me, I'd have left one of the most emotional experiences on the table that I'd ever played. And actually, the journey of seeing things through other people's eyes, the journey of going through the growth of these people, the journey of seeing where that then takes us is worth the fuel, is worth the sacrifice that's made early on. Because without that, if I've said this many times on this show, we did an whole episode dedicated to sort of defending some bolder choices Naughty Dog made. But if that had been another, let's say it was east to west, and this was a west to east journey with the two of them sharing moments and blah, 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 and just basically cutty cook of copy of the first game, it would have been panned.
Mm-hmm.
More of the same, boring, same combat, same people, same story, real boring. Those same people who said that would have said that's boring are the people who said, how dare you? Outrage for outrage's sake. What did you do? So, yeah, I think the third one's needed. You never know. They might kill off a character from the first game, and then we go through with two other people who've never even played us before. And heck, do you know what? If the story's strong enough, I'm all for it.
Yeah, me too.
Just goes to show you, like, the viewpoint. Like, does that person think they're good? Does that person think they're bad? What are they? Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you play Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you're a Viking going to someone else's country, trying to take it over and destroy it. And you're like, yeah, I'm a good guy. Now you're playing Ghost of Tsushima and you're defending your country from outsiders. Now they're bad.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Stories
it
and
just
history have this sort of strange take. The winner writes the rules, right? So, 1 minute you're in Valhalla invading, you're the bad guy. The next minute you're defending from invaders, you're the good guy. In The Last of Us Part 2, the line between good and bad, because of the apocalyptic settings that you find yourself in, they're actually
I think
ramps it up.
Yeah, I think that game. I think a lot of people don't. They don't comment on. It's a very enjoyable game. One of the best games I've ever played. The combat's good. You've got the gamey things in it, but the actual story they tell, I don't think anyone has ever done in the game before. They're telling you that if this did happen, this is what it would be like. People, without ruining anything, I won't say too much, but people do turn to savages. People do, the whole rules are changed. The whole world has gone as we know it. And that's a new world. And they do show you how this is. And I know people complained about, it shouldn't have gone like this. So sure, you shouldn't have done that. At the end of the day, this is Naughty Dog's story that you're playing. That's not our story that we want to guide out. And I think they absolutely nailed it. They nailed that emotional side that normally films and movies do. And I wonder as well, with the part 3, is the part 3 to do with being, have they been in production a long time, or is it to do with the TV series, to give the TV series more depth, to give that more length, like how The Walking Dead went on, whether they'll, extend another season or 2 of that, maybe, because I know Neil Druckmann's involved in that, isn't he, as well? I think he's directing that as well. So whether
from what we've seen of the trailers, it looks like they're following. Because I saw some bits in the trailer from the first game that I was like, they've actually nailed that.
I was thinking, I've played that.
Because at the end, obviously the farm in the game is on the right-hand side, but in the trailer for the series, it showed them driving past the burning farm and the farm was on the left. And I was like, that's actually quite a cool way of doing it, because people are going to be expecting it on the right. So in the TV show, it's going to be on the left.
Yeah.
And just subtle switch-ups. But yeah, it seems like they've nailed a lot of the hallmarks there. Seb, what's your thoughts on the inevitable arrival of The Last of Us Part 3?
I think y'all nailed it. I think this is a great move all the way around, because I think this needs to be a trilogy. I think the way that the last game left off, I think leaves it open-ended enough for the trilogy. No spoilers there, but also HBO and Sony want a hit. They want a big blockbuster hit that that transcends video games. And if they nail the Last of Us TV show, they are going to want a lot of material to come after that. And I think my theory is they split the first season basically in half of where the first game is. So I'm like, I don't think we get the whole first season is the whole game of the first The Last of Us. So I think they split that in half, so to speak, and we can see how that kind of story plays out. And this gives them an opportunity to not only give us more content, but to The Last of Us feels like it's just now on the cusp of being mainstream, so to speak. And I feel like this capitalizes on that brilliantly. So I'm a fan of this move. I think, Sony has a streaky track record when it comes to live action adaptations or live action, movies and TV shows. So if they nail this, though, they got a potential the next big thing in gaming on their hands.
Okay,
it's true.
Okay, next, who wants this next bit of news?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you like video games, podcasts, and reminiscing? I'm actor, video game writer, and total sweetie pie Connor Savage McCabe, and on each episode of Call Me By Your Game, I sit down with a guest for an intimate look at a special game from their past. Did you and your dad beat Spyro the Dragon over the holidays? Or was Halo 4 the one thing that united your roommates during your senior year of college? Stories like these are what Call Me By Your Game is about. From video game content creator Janet Garcia to Hades voice actor Courtney Vinay's, I interview wonderful comedians and game industry friends about these memories. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe someday you'll call me by your game.
We got Ebony and Ivory together.
You snooze, you lose, RGT.
I'm sorry. I just looked down.
No, you go.
The original PS. Oh, because you have one, I don't. I get it. The original PSVR, impressive as it was, felt a little bit tacked on to the PS4 experience. There were many
I know I can write this on incongruences.
incongruences. Yes, exactly. That's for a third grade reading level right there. The most notable being the exemption of the HDR pass through in the original Breakout box at the time when Sony was really promoting the emerging television technology. In fact, the existence of the Breakout box itself was a demonstration of just how disconnected it felt to the core console, resulting in a spaghetti of cables that ultimately became miserable to manage. PSVR 2 will avoid that issue as the headset has been built and designed in parallel with the PS5. According to PS5 Senior's Vice President Platform Experience, Hideki Nishoni, speaking with Famitsu, he confirmed that while the headset was developed by a different team, they worked in parallel with the people responsible for the console to ensure that the streamlined experience overall. That expands to the setup, which will require just a single cable running to the front of the new gen machine. There is one USB-C port in front of the PS5, but that was actually prepared in anticipation of connecting the PSVR 2 via Google Translate. PSVR still had issues with connection with the PS4 system. So in order to clean those things up, we designed it together with the PS5 from the beginning. If worth mentioning that, in addition to the all-new technology packed into the headset itself, the PS5's tentpole features are going to massively improve the immersion of the PSVR 2. Things like 3D audio and even the lightning fast loading times of the PS system's SSD will all be leveraged by virtual reality games. Heightening the experience of the headset itself, pair all that with the haptic feedback, better motion tracking, and rendering, when we're all in for a real treat.
Absolutely. So, hands up here who either has or is this is great for an audio show. Look at me, hands up, right?
Hands up.
Someone's driving down the road now, like, George, we can't see those hands. So, a quick yay or nay if you've had or experienced PSVR RGT.
Yay.
Seb.
Yay.
Bobby.
Nay.
We need more yays and nays offs in this. Okay, so Bobby, maybe this is your time to sit, have a slurp of whatever fine beverage you've got. While I ask these gentlemen very quickly, RGT, what did you make of PSVR? Fan or not?
Yeah, I was a fan. I noticed when we had our sort of wrap up from PlayStation, I haven't actually played it this year at all, which probably says where that dried up a bit with games. I thought
just a heads up though, by the way, last week, Car Mechanic Simulator actually came out with a VR version.
No way.
Yeah.
I know what you'll be doing next week.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it felt to me more of, I would probably say, like that was like a demo version of the PSVR 2. It was like a test area, I found. Obviously, it was an afterthought of the PS4 because you did have that external box. You did have the external leads, which I kept mine set up all the time. So it was just another little, unit within the box. So I didn't find it too bad. If you had to set it up afresh every time, yes, I can see that being a big issue. But I enjoyed the games I had. I think, I don't think, with the games, I always found it hard when you went into a game store to buy a physical game. That was hard. Occasionally you had that VR section and that sort of faded away. I'd like to see the games even listed differently, done differently, the cases different. I had a little VR section so you could go in and, that was always sort of a game that was VR compatible. There was, I'd like to see that separation from the PS4. But yeah, I enjoyed it. But like I say, I do find that it was a bit of a stepping stone to the PSVR 2. It was a bit of a test bed, see what the audience is like, see how many they sell. And I think they really done over what they wanted to sell, so done quite well, and hence we're getting the PSVR 2. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Let me ask you a follow-up question then. Do you think you're going to pay $549 in February for the VR 2?
No. No,
It doesn't. It doesn't feel worth it right now, does it?
It doesn't. The tech specs of it are impressive. The tech specs are very impressive. They've probably been developing it a few years. I think the current climate and where they're launching it in is going to be a struggle. Because if someone's got PSVR and they've got a PS4 at the moment, they want a PS5 and a PSVR 2. You're then creeping that $1,000. That's a big ask in the current climate with energy bills and what's going on in the world. I will get a PSVR 2. I don't think I will be getting it on launch. I would love to get it on launch because I think it looks fantastic. But it might be a benefit not getting it on launch because then we can just see what support, what games, what is lined up for it. Give it 6 months, see what's there. Might be able to get a deal and go from there. But as on launch, no, that won't be for me, unfortunately.
My last follow-up question for you then is like, with all the other VR headsets feeling like going wireless, do you feel like this is a step back that this still has wires for you?
I don't, because obviously I know you've got all the mechanical bits within the headset itself. And obviously they're adding in the haptics in the headset and bits and pieces, little tech trickery. But I think they need it to be with that PS5. That's not a separate gaming devices, your Quests and your Oculus and bits and pieces like that. So I think, and also they're going to harness that power of the PS5 as well, I suppose. So you'll be able to save your games within that PS5. You can, you've got the SSDs. You'll be able to crunch a bit more out. Hence why I think they've gone 4K in the headset. So no, one wire doesn't bother me. I mean, like I said before, with the original PS VR and the PS4, I had mine set up all the time, so I didn't mind the wires. I still only had the one wire come out, and I sat in the chair in front of the TV and played it. I can see why it is a problem if people are having to set up and then take it down each time. So I think with this one wire, that's probably going to be a bit of a godsend to them. So just plug the one in. I know there is the VR headsets where you can stand and walk around and go, plan your area out in your room. For me personally, it's not really my thing. I'm a bit of a lazy gamer. I quite like sitting down and playing my game. So, yeah, I'm not really into that side of things. So the one cable, no, that doesn't worry me at all. No, that's fine.
I wonder if people are going to. I wonder if the disconnect with the wire is going to be those people who play it in a living room, gaming room kind of setup versus people who play it in a computer desk sort of situation. Because I feel like those two aesthetics the wire kind of feels differently in those two aesthetics,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think wire position's quite a thing as well. I did find it a bit with the PSVR. You had the one wire, but you had to keep trying to put it behind your shoulder so you don't catch it with your arms. Especially as the new controllers are a bit more, rather than using I know we had the Move controllers, but a lot of people use the PS4 controller. Now we've got those separate controllers. You are going to be waving your arms about quite a bit, I'd imagine. So that's going to be location of the wire, I think.
I put this piece of news grabbed me, to be honest, and I'm bizarrely, I've been mildly intrigued in getting the PSVR out again and dusting off. And what's prompted it again was this car mechanic simulator, because every time I played that on the flat screen, I was like, this would be great if I could actually be wielding the wrench myself. More physicality, more interactivity with the game. One of my biggest issues, and they talked on it there, is I had a version 1 of the PSVR, and I think it was solved in a later revision, but it didn't allow 4K HDR pass-through. And I just I had a PS4 standard, and then I got the VR and was like, yeah, okay, this is good, but if it's going to get better on the Pro, and I actually got a Pro off the back of it for a multitude of reasons, flat screen gaming and VR. And then having to mess around with wires at the back of a complicated system so I could have 4K on the TV when I wanted it, and then to be able to play VR. To be honest with you, it was damn right annoying. Now, I'd like to dust it off because what I would say the problem with VR just generally is you want to feel grounded in the world and you want to feel part of it. And there's no doubt about it, VR is way more immersive than other versions. I've never been so terrified in a game such as Resident Evil 7, and I've never been so sort of immersed and enchanted by a game as such things as Astrobot VR or Batman or Star Trek or some of the other heavy hitters that we've had. Wonderful experience. but you feel like you're in a glass bowl in a 3D world. You don't feel like an actual person in that 3D world who can pick up and grab stuff. Yes, you can, but that fishbowl sort of extends around you as you move. You can't physically feel a tree. You can't physically touch something. You can't hold, to quote Red Dwarf, I can touch, I can feel, I can taste Crichton Fetch to Punch a repair kit. I didn't have that next level experience in VR. It was great, and I did feel like I was in a world, but I didn't feel like I was part of a world. And I'm really hoping with the haptic feedback and the inside out tracking and the one wire and the more VR, really, PSVR 1 was more of a seated thing. Every time I got stood up to try and make it more of a 3D interactive experience, like a Skyrim or No Man's Sky, it just didn't quite work very well. You very quickly reach the edges of the tracking. It's like, oh, no, sit back down. You have to sit back down. You've got to look at the camera. You've got to reset the headset. There was a lot of bit of... And the other thing that's really took me out of the game was the accented movement. So you can move around, but then you have to move your character in quadrants. Yeah. Some games give you free moves, some didn't. So wherever this goes, I'm hoping that they nail it straight out the gates.
I think the original PSVR was an afterthought of the PS4, whereas I think the PSVR 2 has been built in conjunction with the PS5. So I'm hoping it's going to be, whereas they had to sort of make do with the PSVR and add that little box and add the bits and pieces on those. Well, I think with the PSVR 2, hopefully that's going to be a lot more streamlined and a lot more...
I tell you, when PSVR launched, I remember going round car boots, as we call them, fellow friends will call them flea markets, thrift sales, that sort of thing. And people literally built little caves out of PS Move controllers. Now those PS Move controllers are worth probably £40,000 each. Those people that had them assembled that were kicking around covered in dust and dirt, they were suddenly millionaires overnight off the back of PSVR.
Yeah, it's
crazy. I feel that using a PlayStation 3 motion controller that was a bit of an afterthought at best as the main interactive feature for your PlayStation VR headset. I mean, fair play for keeping it on brand, Sony, but oh my goodness gracious me, guys, it seems a little bit odd.
10-year-old tech.
It felt a weird marriage to begin with. So yeah, I'm excited for the second one. Am I going to be one of those people that's there day and date, day one? I'd love to be, but haven't had the email from Sony yet. So if you're listening, send me the email so I can pre-order it. And that's that. I suppose that draws a line. We should move to the next bit of news. I think RGT. No, who's not had a turn? Seb or RGT? It's time to fight it out.
Neither of us have had a turn yet.
Okay, so strip to the waist, fight to the death. Who wants this next piece of news?
I'll go if you like.
Okay, I think Seb will have your throat out, but whatever, you go first. If it was a fight, I mean, Seb would be winning.
Oh, definitely.
He'd give you the mini stingray tombstone from hell.
Tombstone, that is brilliant. Stars in their eyes. News on Starfield has dried up a little, a bit of late, but Bethesda, wherever people say it, I know there's a lot of contention. So you say Bethesda or Bethesda or
I don't know what I call it anymore. Bethesda. I don't know what over the years. I first cottoned onto them in like the early days of Morrowind as an Xbox original game.
Yeah.
And the internet wasn't really, the internet probably was a thing, but I didn't dwell on it like the troll I am. So I just used my own pronunciation for game studios' names. And Bethesda, Bethesda, whatever you call them, as obviously until recent years when I got pulled up on the show for it. Like, George, why do you always say Bethesda wrong? It's like, I thought it was Bethesda. I don't really know, but I just say what I see.
Yeah, so Bethesda has now treated us to a brand new deep dive on the game's quest system, which builds on what came before in both Skyrim and Fallout 4. In the video game above, developer Will Shen takes us through some of the game's big quest-related features while discussing what the team is aiming for with a Starfield storyline. It sounds like Bethesda. Bethesda.
Beth the Asda.
Yeah. Yeah. Beth the Sudda is taking more open-ended approach with Starfield's main quest, especially when it comes to factions and your interactions with them. They say one of the early things we decided on was making sure that the main quest gives you a little bit of a tour of the settled systems and all of the major players there, so that we can give you a taste of what they, the factions, are going to be up to. We also discussed really early on, like, okay, do we make some of the factions in conflict with each other? And we decided we really wanted to make sure that you can play through all the faction lines independently of each other. This time around, we were like, we really want the stories to be a little bit more personal. Your influence and the direction of where this faction is going to go. The new VDoc doesn't provide much new gameplay, unfortunately, but a fresh look at Starfield shouldn't be too far off. For now, Microsoft is still aiming for the first half of 2023 with Starfield's launch.
So we talked about this a bit off air. Obviously, 2023, Sony's thrown its guns out, unless they've got a couple of things sort of hiding in the pipeline. We pretty much know how 2023 is going to pan out for them, and they've wheeled out some heavy hitters, no doubt. Now, obviously, Starfield and Microsoft, they're aiming for the first half of 2023, quite rightly. They better hit that window. Unless Starfield ends up solving child illnesses, they need to hit that window. And it needs to be a banger. Let's go to a big fan of the Bethesda Studios games, Bobby. Starfield's going to elude you currently, because I don't think, have you picked up a Series S recently or not?
No.
You have an Xbox One. I don't think Starfield's coming to that. Not unless it's going to look like Minecraft. What's your thoughts on if Starfield had been coming to a platform you had, would you be excited about it based on your history with Elder Scrolls and Fallout?
Yes, I like those kind of games, so I would be excited for it. Probably going to be the same exact thing, just in space.
That's my only and to be fair, that's exactly what it looks like. And to that end, if you missed out, maybe you ought to just give Outer Worlds a try, because that might be your budget Starfield for playing.
Well, I played Outer Worlds.
Oh no!
I played it.
Okay. I think you can get a hypnotist for like 60 bucks. He'd make you forget everything you'd ever known, so you could play
I can
it again.
imagine that's going to be almost similar to that. So it's like Outer Worlds 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. I see it being that. Seb, are you excited for Bethesda's next tie-up and their first Microsoft exclusive?
There's so much riding on this game. I think the narrative going into Halo Infinite was how much there was riding on that, and sadly that didn't pan out as the success that Microsoft was hoping for. And with Forza kind of coming, and it has a little bit of the stay power, but it's kind of dissipated from a lot of gamers' mindsets. It feels like that first party discussion, or that first party narrative of where Xbox is currently, has become bigger than ever before. And the 2023 feels like a make or break year for Xbox. It really does. It feels like they need to come out with a Redfall and Starfield both need to come out of the guns hot and come out of the gates hot and swing. But Starfield, I don't think it is impressing a whole lot of people so far with what they've shown so far. And I feel like this news right here just kind of confirms what we've already known about the game, so to speak, that it is going to be Skyrim and Fallout 4 in space with a little No Man's Sky twist to it. And I think the uphill battle here is they have to dissuade people into thinking like that, because I think a lot of people don't like that aspect of, hey, this just feels like No Man's Sky with a little bit of like, but there's a spin to it. I think they really need to come out of the gate and say, no, this is revolutionary. This is not just a game that is made on Todd Howard's like older system that he created back almost in at this point 2008, that he's been iterating on ever since then.
I actually think that it's well, I watched a documentary about Fallout 76, and they said the main issue they stumbled across was sort of like late 90s code still existed in the background of this game, which completely gazumptum, which meant they had to start again from fresh with their own platform. So there's parts of these games that date back to sort of maybe like 95, 96, which boggles the mind.
And man, yeah, it's, and I think that's a lot of people's problems is like that system feels archaic now, and they really have an uphill battle. And I think the marketing for this game is more, it's more imperative than ever that they absolutely nail the marketing of this game and nail what this game should be.
Definitely.
RGT, have you been a big fan of the Bethesda games, or have you just sort of ignored them?
No, I've dabbled with a few games. I find quite a few of them quite glitchy games. They're a bit content over quality, I find. You get long games with lots to do, not necessarily in, the quality you'd find in other games. Starfield definitely caught my eye. I haven't got a Series X, but I'm definitely thinking about getting one next year. And this would have to be a reason for me to get one, is Starfield. You got your Forzas on there, which I want to play. I'm hoping that Starfield, it doesn't look like it to me at the moment. I'm hoping Starfield, because I always find space games always promise a lot, but they always end up being the same space games. I find space game, I find it quite hard. You've got your Mass Effects and that, it's more of a story game in space. You've got the other end of the spectrum of your Elite Dangerous, where it's a simulation and you're exploring. I still don't find someone has actually nailed a space game. And I was sort of hoping that Starfield would be that game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
A fantastic story, fantastic open space world where you could explore and build and bits and pieces. I'm not sure it is. I hope it is. I mean, if that does come out, that early part of the year, and it comes out with big scores, which it needs to come out with big scores. It needs to come out absolutely at the gate for them with a, this is revolutionary. It's got to be something different. If it is that big, then yeah, I will probably consider getting a Series X for that.
I think that's the point. Yeah, I don't think this game can come out with a 7 out of 10. Like, no. I don't think it can afford to do it. This has to be a 10 out of 10 kind of game. And if it's anything less, I feel like it's going to be a massive disappointment.
And you can tell Microsoft are banking on this because that's they're heavily backing this game, as they are. Is it Redfall, the other one?
Your Redfall, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of adverts for that. So they're really backing these games. So they're hoping that these are going to be their bangers for next year. So this
question.
Yes.
Have we got enough time to get the show's cherub between now and then, and at least an Xbox Series S, so we can keep his Bethesda games tally high? Bobby, what's it going to take to get the fans donating to you so you can get a Series S? It's part of the show. It's needed, isn't it?
Is it?
Oh dear.
Okay, well, I think Bobby's basically going to let Starfield pass him by like he's in a coma. I mean, that probably speaks 1,000 words for trying to drag gamers across the Games Pass and the Xbox brand. Bobby's certainly not going to be there day and date, even if I force a Series S in his hand and a 12 months Game Pass subscription in the other one. This is the last bit of news. Seb, quite poignant that you jump in here, because this is how we end the news as we roll into, let's face it, this feature that you've noticed there's some disparity, and we're going to get there, but let's just keep everyone excited. You've noticed there's a disparity between Cyberpunk releasing broken and getting absolutely nailed to the cross for it, although religious metaphors do apply, and Pokemon, as an example, that's getting quite literally a free pass on PS1-like textures popping in at 200 feet in front of your face. And it's okay because, oh, look at Pokemon. Woo! So with that quite solid point noticed, I swing to you for this last piece of gaming news.
All right. So as you so wellly put, this last gaming news is in the realm of Pokemon. So long, thanks for all, the Ash. The Pokemon Company has announced Ash Ketchum will be hanging up his trainer cap after 25 years early next year. The news has surprised a lot of the people around the world, including the current voice of Ash, and now seems that the original voice of the character in the long-running anime has also chimed in. Taking to social media, Veronica Taylor couldn't believe it herself, mentioning how it's been an incredible journey for the character over the past 25 years. Here's exactly what she had to say across a series of tweets. This announcement has me really surprised. I'm filled with so much emotion. I guess I'd never consider Ash's journey ending. I need a moment to process. This is a new beginning. It looks lovely. To all you Pokemon trainers out there, I choose you. I am so happy to be traveling on this spectacular journey with all of you. Through all the highs and all the lows, we are truly in this together. An incredible 25 years journey like no other. This is truly the end of a very joyful era. Ash and Pikachu and are the hearts of Pokemon. Ash may not age, but we all have grown up with their friendship and their adventures. This from Veronica Taylor. So, in the original announcement, the Pokemon Company mentioned that there would be another 11 episodes starting January 13th, 2023 in Japan, focused on Ash's and Pikachu's final journey. His original adventure, oh my God, began back in April 1997. Dang, it's been that long. While it's seemingly at the end of an era, the Pokemon Company has also announced a new anime series starring 2 new protagonists featuring the Paldea region starter Pokemon. What say you boys? What do you think about this?
Well, I guess that voice of Ash has been synonymous with the Pokemon brand. And I must say, by the way, how can we let this moment pass without saying that your voice acting skills, you're keeping secrets, aren't you?
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
That was amazing.
It was. I
thought another person was talking.
Oh.
Perfection personified. It's synonymous with the voice. The anime really launched the whole Pokemon wave over here. I think we probably got the game and it was a sleeper, and then the show came, and all of a sudden you couldn't get hold of these things quick enough, and that's still the case. If you look at an original copy of Pokemon Red or Blue, just loose car is worth half your house. If you've got it boxed, you don't need to work ever again. Some elaboration has been applied, but this person leaving. I don't know. It's a bit like Bart Simpson quitting, the voice actor for Bart Simpson quitting The Simpsons. It's just something isn't quite right about that. The fact they want to take it 2 new protagonists, well, no doubt they're going to be forward-thinking individuals, aren't they? With the new art style that makes it look like the Powerpuff Girls, I can smell this coming a mile off. Animation sometimes doesn't need to be devolved into primary colours. Kids can enjoy some heartfelt anime with a good story. Now, some would say, George, you said good story. You talk about a Pokemon cartoon. Well, within realms. It's not all about retrieving I don't like the way animation's going when you see some of the superhero shows, the dumbed down primary colours, and, kids these days don't have anything solid or realistic in that Japanese anime style until they get a little bit older, and as teens, they stumble across anime and all that other good stuff, and they go all in on it. But Pokemon's almost like anime light for a lot of these people, and it's what drew them in. Could it survive having ditched Ash and Pikachu and move into this years' time? Reboot of the original Pokemon with Ash back and the voice actor back quietly under the radar. Don't worry about it. Everything's back as it was. Don't worry. Let's see if we can keep the fans. Because are kids playing Pokemon, or is it 30-something-year-old man babies that are just looking for the next game and hide all the collectibles away and put all the plushies on the shelf? I don't even know what a Pokemon gamer looks like anymore. So does it matter if they desecrate the original series? No, because Blu-rays probably immortalize that for life. That's my take on it. But RGT, you look like a bustling Pokemon fan.
Yeah, you might have got that completely wrong. I was a few years late for Pokemon when it first came out. There was the kids were playing it sort of 3 years before me at school, so they were into it. Never been much of a Pokemon player, never really got into it. It's never quite my thing. I've got a couple of friends who they do. They love the Pokemon, especially the later games. Got into them more with the later games. Never really enjoyed them. I did try playing a later one. I think it was Shield. Pokemon Shield.
Yeah, on the Switch, yeah.
Sword and Shield.
But Sword and Shield. Yeah, I put a few hours in, but once I got into it, I found it a very grindy game. And I'm not really into that sort of grind of a game. I can see where the appeal is with the collecting and playing. But yeah, I think it's sad when you lose, original things like this. But with all game series, I suppose, especially long running game series, sometimes a refresh is good, and new start for them, and yeah, give it a new go and some new characters and see how it goes, I suppose.
Fan of the turn-based combat, Bobby. Is this all just passing? Is this all just passing you by like a dead pigeon in the local river, or are you looking at this going, "Who's Ass Ketchum? Ass Cat."
That's
the adult version.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
Yeah, okay.
About it.
Got a.
Well, I don't play Pokemon. I never played it in my life.
Oh dear.
Right. I saw the cartoon when my sister was born, 97. She liked it. She got over it real quick. No, but for as far as the fan base, yeah, it sucks when you lose like a big voice of the franchise. Respects to Kevin Conroy. He passed away. That's like an Aragon for us because he passed away, not because they're changing something. They try to change his voice actor for a few movies because they wanted a younger sounding Batman, and that didn't really go too well either. So
let me ask you. Obviously, we had, and I'll come to Seb for his take on this in 1 second. But obviously, we had, as you mentioned, Kevin Conroy. He obviously had a great run as the animated series Batman, and then really had like a stretch in the barren of really nothing until Arkham Asylum came out, and everyone went nuts for it, and that reimagined the whole Hamill Conroy thing, and they built a beautiful trilogy of games. Just for a moment, imagine this is part of the process of getting the ultimate Pokemon game. So the animations died. 10 years from now, there's going to be a Pokemon game, revolutionary, and they're going to bring Ash Ketchum back, and you play as Ash. That doesn't get you excited, but just as an idea, do you think that's something that could give legs back to Veronica Taylor?
You know what? In life, you never know. So if they want to wait that long, maybe she's around, maybe she's not. We don't know.
Oh no.
Well, you don't know in life, right? So I'm just saying that that's your plan. You don't know. So I wouldn't do something like that. If I had a long running franchise and nothing's wrong with the actress or actor who's playing the roles, then let it go. Let it keep going. What's the issue?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
You don't have to reboot everything for no reason.
Yeah, but we're obsessed with reboots now.
I know. It's annoying.
We don't have new ideas. We just reboot old ones. And if we're in between a reboot and a new idea, we just remaster what we had before. Seb, what's your thoughts on this? Are you going to be? Are you tearful? Were you rocking up with your red and blue day one? You've been running around. You had a Pokemon related nickname, like mine was Snorlax. Yours was probably like, I don't know, Dude Perfect. I don't know.
I've been an OG Pokemon fan probably since the beginning. I've played almost every iteration of the game. For better or for worse, a lot of the over the last probably 10 years, I would probably say for worse, because it is like a almost like a staple in the life to where you just kind of pick it up and you're like, I know what I'm about to get myself into. This isn't going to be the greatest experience. It has been the same exact game for 20 years now, and it it is a very grindy process. But I will say they are trying to take steps forward, and with the animated series, this feels like the right move, because there is a whole generation that they think can capitalize on, and Ash isn't just Pokemon. It is sad when you lose the original voice actor for a project that has been in circulation for 20 years at this point, but you do need a fresh take. You do need a revamp, because stuff kind of feels stagnant, and you alienate people when things just keep running off in the same exact formula over and over again. There's a Family Guy and The Simpsons kind of aspect to it, to where a lot of people love that show, but a lot of people fell off because they're like, I just can't watch another season of the same old. And as parent, I'm not a parent yet, but as a parent, I would imagine, if you're introducing your kid to Pokemon, you would want to do it with a different protagonist, to where that protagonist can speak to him or her more so, your kid more so than Ash probably would, where you'd be like, oh, there's 20 years of history with Ash that you need to catch up on versus this new character where you can just log them in like a season ago and they can instantly catch up and be familiar with that versus having to go back and watch 1,000 episodes of a show at this point, you know? So I feel like this is a smart move business wise.
That I don't know whether that showcases me as a good or a bad parent, because I would sit my kids down and give them the education. Like, you can't watch this late. It's like Kingdom Hearts 3, desperate to play it. I'm like, finish Kingdom Hearts 2 first. Do it now. But Kingdom Hearts 3's got the flashy graphics and the real cool animations and the battle animations with the Dumbo and the rides, and I really want to no, let it gather dust until 2 is finished on PS2, and then and only then. I'm not that mean, actually. I've recently let them put the PS4 remaster on, and they're playing it on there, and then when that's finished over Christmas, hopefully we'll move into 3.
Can we be real though? I mean, I played every Kingdom Hearts game, and I don't think anyone but the hardest of hardcore fans can explain what the hell that storyline is. So I'm like,
but for me, it's on the graphical evolution timeline. I know that when they were playing 1 on the PS2 and loving it, I was thinking, yeah, this is great. And then they got to 2, and then they heard whispers of 3. I thought, there's no way on the graphical timeline I'm going to be able to get them back to the PS2 era and swallow that pill, sans water, if they get to taste the wonderful delights of 3 out the bat. And to be fair, it probably, although no one knows what's going on in Kingdom Hearts, it was only, I don't know, this past week when I was watching some Kingdom Hearts 2 action, and the very start where you play as, not as Sora, you play as that other character.
Roxas.
Yeah, Roxas. I was like, oh my God. So Roxas is like a spirit carcass. I mean, he gets a rough deal, doesn't he, really? I mean, did he ever exist? Is there any reason to exist other than being a receptacle for Sora's soul? And at that point, once he's used up like a wet tissue from whatever bodily fluid you've injected into it, thrown into the bin like he's nothing. So don't think too long and hard about what I'm saying, Seb, because then you might realise. Okay, I think, I've probably slaughtered the news once again there with one of my bizarre takes. Let's move on, because we've got the main feature to get into that the wonderfully talented Seb has auteured for us. But before we get there, hang on a minute. You had one job, pal. Yeah, I'm looking at you. RGT's like, he's looking at me, isn't he? We made a segment. We called it Hidden Gems. Unless that's already happened and I slept through it, in which this case I probably did. Tell me, what's your... That'll be the community correction for next week. What's your hidden gem, opal fruit, with RGT looking like this week?
PS2 game this week.
Oh, thank the Lords. Come to me, serenade me from the heavens. What have you got for us this week?
It's by Acclaim. It did release on PSP, but as a download only, I believe. And that game is the Red Star.
Oh, tell me more about the Red Star.
It's based on a graphic novel of the same name, and it's sort of set in an alternate world where the Soviet Union is sort of taken over the world, and they have these sort of I think what they're called. They're like
mechs.
They're like these special spaceships that they sort of run on this fuel, and your aim is to go and infiltrate the Russians as you go, and it's sort of side-scrolling, almost run and gun. Bordering on a bit of a shmup, really, because there's levels where you'll go top down and you'll have to avoid the bullets and kill the bosses.
Whoa!
I already love it.
Mm-hmm.
I get this game confused in my mind. So what's this one called? Ring of Red?
No, the Red Star.
Red Star.
Mm-hmm.
And have I got a game called the Red? I mean,
Steady.
I say it now. Yes. I realise there's probably a lot of people laughing at this.
Yeah.
I've got a game on PS2 which is a turn-based mech strategy game set in an alternate universe where America and Russia are at war with each other, using mechs as the medium of the combat, and I think it's called Ring of Red. Right. Someone will let me know in the Discord, I'm sure. These games are completely separate.
Yeah.
And your one takes on a whole different genre, a shmup. Really?
Yeah.
Like a bullet hell shmup? Or
well, that's like It's 2.5D side scroll and sort of third person action game where you're shooting as you go along, but you'll get the odd bosses where the screen will flip up and you'll have to avoid your bullets like you would in a shmup game to beat the boss.
Wow.
Like Contra.
Yeah. It's graphically, it looks. I play it on a CRT on my PS2 and it looks stunning. Graphically, it's got beautiful parallax scrolling in the background. Yeah, really good character animations, good weapons. It's a tough game. It is a tough game. You'll have to keep. When you're dead, you're dead. That is it, and you'll have to restart. But the replayability is really good because you want to keep going that little bit more. I absolutely love this game. I think it's brilliant. You can pick it up price-wise at the moment. That's about £8 to £12. If you want a really good copy, £15. But if you're going to buy it now because it is going up. It was 2 years ago. It was a £4 game. It is going up. So if you're going to get it now. But I definitely recommend it. There's something different, and like I say, it looks good, plays really well, and that's a good game if you got friends. And I play with friends and taking turns, see how far we can get that bit further, see the next level. Really good. But yeah, definitely recommend it. The Red Star PS2.
Perfect. As always, a man of class and elegance picks from his library of games. The Smithsonian look on, they wish they had that many games. They don't. I don't know if they collect games, but if they did, they wouldn't have that many. So that's a wonderful one. Is that going to find its way onto the Discord, into your little area where you put up all your hidden gems?
Yeah, you can check out if you want to see my other hidden gems. Thanks to Bada Binkster for this. He designs the artwork and he does little custom game cases, and I'll put a little review on there, a little mini review, Metacritic score, what I think of it, where to pick it up from, how much it is. So check out, and there's a little hidden gems with RGT section on the Discord, and all the games will be listed every week as we go along.
It's actually going to be my favourite place to go, and I can't wait for a backlog to build up so I can go back through them all. Have I played this? Have I got this? A little
We'll do
going on.
Hidden gems of RGT calendar, and each month have one of the games.
Ooh, that's too much, bro.
I like it. I'm into it. Next year, there's a Patreon exclusive. They'll be able to get an advent,
and it has to be you holding the game each month.
He comes to your house.
What was steady?
Transatlantic hero just arrives, puts a PAL copy through the door. It's useless to you, sir, but take it anyway. Gets on a plane and flies back. I wasn't quite thinking now. I was just thinking a calendar made out of cardboard that we send out with the real games in it. But, just to prove how much of a hidden gem these things are, we're going to be giving them away. But not quite that generous yet. But it's so far we've had a real and eclectic mix, and that's what I'm enjoying about it. So, okay. We missed you out of the main part where you normally hide out, but snuck in between the end of the news and community corrections. Feels like the right place. So, if you're listening, and I don't think community corrections, we've had some things, but nothing major. So we're going to gloss over that, pretend it never happened. Okay. But if we did make a slip up in the show, if we did have an opinion or take on the news that we missed, we got completely the wrong end of the stick. Maybe there's more to this Pokemon story than meets the eye, in which case, get yourself motivated. Get in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, I ask you, what's actually wrong with you? It's free. As you're about to find out, going forward, it's the only place where the comments are going to get to be on the show. Before, we did that on Instagram. Wonderful. We did it on Twitter. Great. Now, Stage 1, baby. They're locked down. We're not about that jazz anymore. We're going to put some pictures up, some stories up. We'll do all that like normal. But if you want to comment on the show, you have to join. We're getting rude. We're going to get brutal. We've been polite. We've been kind. We've left it there. Come join us, please. Get in it now. So I'm sending round Stingray to appear in the most butch form he's ever appeared as. Seb's idea of what Ray looked like. Oh yeah.
Scary.
The initial idea of what Ray looked like to Seb. He will come round your house and he will tombstone pile drive you through your phone. Crack screen, never going to use it again. Piece of Gorilla Glass embedded in your head. I don't even cry it out. Cry it out. We don't care. Get in Discord or you are quite literally dead to us. Simple. And if you like the show, you think of us like brothers, then you wouldn't do this to your family members, would you? So join the Discord, make it simple. If they need to get in there and express their opinion, Bobby, how would the collective masses get in contact with us and say, George, you're an idiot, but do you know what? It's okay.
They could reach us on Instagram or Twitter at Unofficial Controller Podcast, or they can email us, which is George's favorite thing of communication, at questions@unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com. And in those little social medias, there's a link to the Discord.
It's the only reason why they exist right now. They're just sort of traps, little snares in the grass to pull people into the Discord, because this is where we want the conversation to take place. Okay. One man who did reach out on the email, not only is he very handsome, but I'm starting to feel like the odd one out here, because not only is he super handsome, he's super intelligent as well. So that's 3 co-hosts who look absolutely $1 million, and one that looks like he's had his face dragged across the M25. That's a very large motorway here in the UK. You might call it a highway, freeway, call it what you like here in America. But yeah, that's what I look like. And these 3 absolute studs. You got the MILF's favorite, RGT.
That should be on a shirt.
Yeah, the MILF's
That should be on a shirt. That should be on a shirt.
MILF stroke GILF, because you know what? Everyone's looking younger these days. Yeah, beggars can't be choosers. And then you've got the 2 cherubs, really, the absolute studs of the show, the ones who would be at the front of the boy band while me and RGT danced in the background, hoping that the fog from the stage show would skewer our visages. So the guys at the front can just clean up like a harvest. Anyway, with all that said and done, Seb, this is where this started, a man of intelligence and good looks. He used the email to get in touch. He made me realise very quickly, very talented young man. We had him on for an episode, Indie Games We Slept On, and he's now part of the team. Get him out. I don't know what's on his T-shirt, but something. The babyface Bronx assassin there, he's got that on his T-shirt. The MILF's Choice from Suffolk. Me, I'm the Stevie Wonder's Choice. And Seb, he's everyone's choice. Seb, we head into a feature. You pointed out to us that you've been thinking that Pokémon Scarlet are getting a free pass. So you've, in terms of performance, and one can't probably disagree. So before we get started, are there any sort of parentheses you want to add to this wonderful sort of script we got going on here, friend, or are we going to dive straight in?
The only thing I'll say is, like, you can count on me to be the voice of the voiceless here. Like, I look for these things. I look for these injustices. Like, does oatmeal raisin cookies deserve to be cookies? Like, does raisins just catfishing us? Or raisins just catfishing us and pretending to be chocolate chips when they are indeed just raisins? You know, so I look for the injustices where there are there, and I like to point them out. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can expect that from me going forward. That's all I'll say.
Okay, well, to that note, let's get this show on the road then. RGT, aka Donna Rabbit, as you appear on our screen.
Yeah. I haven't stolen this iPad off my wife at all.
Don't, because all the single female listeners are going to be like, well, what? He's got a missus? Done. Disconnect, unsubscribe, don't want to be involved with the show anymore. So you're going to have to keep that on the low-key. Hit us up, friend.
Are Pokemon Scarlet and Violet getting a pass? Can we be honest? Not everything in life is fair. Sometimes people receive blame or criticism when it's not deserved. Some might receive too much criticism, while others not enough. It's the way life works, unfortunately. Video games are not strangers to this dilemma. Some games come out and get ripped apart, both critically and by everyday gamers, while others are not enough. Today, I want to point out an injustice. A game that's come out recently, underdelivered performance-wise, yet seems like it was being given a pass. The game or games in this case are Pokemon Scarlet and Violet?
Okay, so nice. We're going to dig in to find out whether these games did get a pass or not. Bobby, over to you, friend.
So why are these games getting a pass? Publicity and critically when others had similar issues and launches don't. Here are some examples of games that came out with problems and got ripped apart. Mass Effect Andromeda was a highly anticipated sequel to the beloved Mass Effect trilogy. However, when Mass Effect Andromeda came out, it was a laughingstock. It was so bad that the bugs in the game became a meme. Okay? The hype around No Man's Sky was massive. I remember the talk about the game would change everything. Then it came out and it had its fair share of problems. The dialogue around the game became venomous. Even though the game is now good and solid, No Man's Sky was talked about and used as an example of a rough launch for years. That is until Cyberpunk 2077 came out. This game was marked in a way that the hype grew to GTA levels. At E3, Keanu Reeves. Oh my God! You know what's
He's
funny?
a guy. Yeah,
you know what's funny? My stepfather calls Keanu Reeves Canoe Reeves. It's just it became a meme in our family. So there you go. Keanu Reeves came out and talked about the game and his part in it. The game industry and fans worldwide were at fever pitch with anticipation for the game, including myself. The game was hyped up to the next big thing in video games. Its launch was disastrous. The dialogue around the game instantly became negative, even after many improvements that turned Cyberpunk 2077 into a pretty good game. There is still that stigma attached to Cyberpunk 2077.
These games came out with rough launches filled with frame rate issues, bugs, and other performance-based problems. It happened, and they were each metaphorically taken out into the street and beaten as a result. Why isn't Pokemon Scarlet and Violet getting the same treatment, I ask?
Well, that's a good point. The UCP community is split. Some feel like they should be getting the same treatment as other games' disasters at launch, while others feel like it's a good game. Thus, the performance issues feel minor. Guys, let's break down this controversial issue. And we reached out, as we said, on the Discord, and we've got some community feedback. But before we dig into that, let's dig into that, because I came to Mass Effect Andromeda late as an example to use, and when I played it, I picked it up for $7.99. Okay, seemed like a reasonably good price for someone who was mildly interested in Mass Effect. Played it. To be honest, if you don't associate it with the original games, Mass Effect Andromeda was pretty cool. It was a greatest hits rework. You know, here's the Mako, here's this, that, and the other. And it wasn't the best game in the world, but it launched broken. And before it got a chance to put itself right, it was already in the bargain bin where I found it. Is that fair? One would imagine sat next. Somewhere there's a shop where Mass Effect Andromeda is sat on a shelf and it can see Pokemon Scarlet and Violet across in the nice new Ninty Switch section. And I bet it's chomping on its teeth, isn't it? It's like, hang on a minute. That game looks like Wipeout on PS1. Nay, Saturn. What the hell's going on? How come it's a free pass and yet me, a Galaxy size game, is getting a kick in? No Man's Sky. I liked the game at launch. The idea of it was meant to be solitude, you on your own versus the universe. But because it wasn't basically a Jedi simulator, it was desecrated unfairly. Cyberpunk 2077 came out. I enjoyed it. There were a few glitches. I think if you want to go back and listen to one of the most comedic ones, I think it was when we had Enigmatic Productions on, and I talked about having sat inside. What was your girlfriend's? What was one of the female sort of characters in that game that was with V?
Judy?
Yeah. Judy
Was it
with the
Jodie?
booty.
No, not Judy. The other one that lived
Pan
on
Am.
the out.
Oh,
Pan
Pan
Am.
Am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ended up taking a car journey in Pan Am's. The game glitched.
I remember
them. Sat me in Pan Am's like animation model so I could see her eyes, but the reversed flipped eyes. You know, when you see a game inside out. And I was basically 2 inches away from Pan Am's sort of weird bug-eyed face. I mean, yeah, that was an issue. And there were other glitches, don't get me wrong, but basically it launched a bit too soon and it felt barren and empty, for want of a better word. Yet, in the light of all that, I had a great experience with it from a single player point of view. The narrative was good, the game was good, but it did not escape scot-free. The furore which we covered around that game, not only as a pre-launch, behind the scenes, and then post-launch, what the actual hell. That game was absolutely savaged. But underneath it all, people refusing to play it, I actually enjoyed. And I think, Bobby, you played it through with me at the time, obviously independently, but we had an absolutely wonderful time with the game. The actual storyline, forget everything else, was wonderful. And it returned to us much happiness.
Because my glitches happened because I downloaded it into the, what do you call it? The SSD.
Oh, yeah.
That was my mistake. So when I was playing it, I had it, and then you told me don't do that. And then that was a mistake. And I put it on the hard drive. And I just had minor issues, nothing game breaking. I mean, every now and then something weird would happen. But for me, I was, I guess, lucky. Others, I knew the game wouldn't even start. It would just get stuck in PS1 mode. And that wasn't even an option. And, you know, it was just, it was horrendous. Yeah.
Seb, have you experienced, obviously, No Man's Sky, some of these other famous bugged out games? I haven't had the chance to play Pokemon Scarlet or Violet yet. I presume you have. How bad is it? And compared to something like Mass Effect Andromeda, is it that bad, or is it close to being that bad?
Okay. I've played, out of the examples we listed, I've never actually touched No Man's Sky. That's like that was a game that never quite appealed to me as a gamer. But I did play Mass Effect Andromeda at launch, and I played Cyberpunk 2077 at launch. Both of them I played to completion at launch, and both of them were messes in their own rights. You know, like I did have a lot of issues with Cyberpunk. I played that on a PS5, by the way, you know, at launch. I did have a lot of issues with the game, but I, like yourself, enjoyed the experience of Cyberpunk. Like I enjoyed that world. I enjoyed the story there. I enjoyed the gameplay because it did something that I've never seen done in that type of game, where you can go up and talk to someone and legitimately leave mid-sentence. You weren't just trapped in that text bubble to where you have to like talk, or you have to hit end discussion and then leave. Like you can just leave. Like I'd never seen that before. And Mass Effect, you know, I had fun with it and really enjoyed it. While it wasn't quite the original trilogy, it was a solid game, but just filled with bugs. Pokemon is like a mixture, Violet and Scarlet, that is a mixture of both of those things, to where I feel like this is a decent game, but is not good for the pedigree of being a 20-year-old franchise. Whereas these games had like the lineage of maybe 3 games before it, in Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky were new IPs. So I'm like, those should have gotten more of a pass. Those were new IPs that completely different than anything we had seen before in different aspects, versus Pokemon, which is a 20-year-old franchise, whereas they had years, and I'm talking about years, to kind of work out a lot of these kinks. Now, when it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I know they, you know, production was a little later on those, but those games experience bugs that I've never seen before in a Pokemon game, or a Nintendo game for that matter, a first-party Nintendo game. I had instances where like the Pokemon were like twerking on the screen, and were like legitimately twerking on the screen. I had issues to where I was in the middle of a gym battle, and half my Pokemon was underneath the gym, and where you could see, like, from their perspective, like I could see maybe the tip of my Pokemon's head, but like everybody else was glitched to the floor. Everyone else was glitched to the floor. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever played Pokemon games, but it almost looked like I hit the dig function, and my Pokemon was dug into the ground, but just decided to live there permanently. So there was also aspects to where, like, in this game, you are given a option to where you can ride certain Pokemon and use them like cars, very similar to Transformers, creepily enough, to where you could ride them like cars and vehicles around the world. My Pokemon, a lot of the times, I had a glitch to where I could hit the ride function, and it would just be me like riding these Pokemon, but the Pokemon weren't there. So it looks like I was just straddling air a lot of the times. and just floating through and still in that straddle motion, but like yeah, still in that straddle kind of motion, but the Pokemon went there. And I think, I did have a couple of game breaking bugs where where the game completely like broke on me and I had to restart the game. I did have one save that was completely corrupted while playing the game where I had to restart the whole game over again after like 50 hours. And, that only happened one time and hopefully that's patched now. But like, I also had one error glitch, and I spoke to some people about it, and they didn't have this particular glitch. So I was wondering, like, on launch day, you could rename Pokemon and to wherever tickles your fancy. Well, I had a cat, and I decided to name him Scabbers for whatever reason, and like I tried to name him Scabbers, and the game glitched, and all my Pokemon were named Scabbers at that point. Like every single one of them was named Scabbers at this point. To be fair, the game is fun and it is a step forward for Pokemon. Like they iterated a lot of like the problems a lot of mainstream Pokemon fans have had with the franchise for the last 10 years or so, where everything felt the same old. But this game was not necessarily in the best state when it came out. Very similar to Cyberpunk, very similar to No Man's Sky, very similar to Mass Effect Andromeda. So that's why I was just like, why isn't the public discourse about this game the same as it was with these games? So that's why I brought this topic to y'all's attention, because I feel like after playing this game, this has a lot of the same kind of vibes and technical issues that those games had.
Okay, well, before we get RGT's take on it all, let's wheel out a community member. We asked you to get in touch on Discord. Some of you did, some of you didn't. Some of you still need to join the Discord. Don't make me come after you with a I don't know, a threatening weapon that's not that malicious, really, a wooden spoon. All right. Rice Space Monk got in touch. He said, having seen some of the bugs and performance issues, I feel it should be getting as much stick as Cyberpunk, Battlefield 2042, GTA Definitive Collection got. But for some reason, because it's a Nintendo first-party game, it seems to get a pass. For me personally, a full-price game should be ready to go on day one. I don't want to buy a game and have to wait a year for it to be patched to a state it should have been in from the get-go. As for the Switch being more accepted of performance issues because of its limitations, I agree that it's more acceptable that if they're porting a game over from a powerful console, but for a first-party title, they should know what they can and can't do with the hardware. On that note, RGT, bringing you in to the conversation, friend. Do Nintendo first-party games get a pass where other AAA independent developers maybe don't get so? And do Nintendo games just generally get a pass? Or maybe even has been leveled at them before, a critique bump?
I think with especially Pokemon, I think there's a lot of people have been playing a lot of them games for a lot of years. So I think they've already got this big community there. I think they're more forgiven, definitely. I think whereas you go down to Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, these were two brand new games, brand new IPs. And don't forget, with No Man's Sky, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love No Man's Sky, but there was a lot of promises with that game. I think that's why there was a lot of anger. You'll be doing this, you'll be doing that, you'll be doing this, you've got this in the game. This was a week before launch. They launched with none of it in. I think that was a lot of the anger, whereas regards to that. Cyberpunk as well. Cyberpunk launched as a PS4, Xbox One game that it wouldn't run on them systems. You had to put it in the next gen to play it, which was, I think that's where a lot of hate and anger come from that, because most of them players at the time playing Cyberpunk were on that generation and couldn't actually play the game. I think you needed the next gen to run an old gen game. Technically, it was, they didn't even launch a physical copy for the PS5 or the Xbox series of consoles. So I think that's where a lot of hate come from that. I'm not saying they shouldn't get it for Pokemon. I think, especially being a Nintendo first party game and an IP, should really be coming out of the box pretty much spot on. I know it's not as always easy as that nowadays. You get bugs after launch. But yeah, I mean, I knew it was buggy. I haven't played it. I didn't realise it was as buggy until Seb was saying all the problems he's had. I didn't realise that was quite as bad as that. Yeah, and it is unusual for Nintendo, to be fair. They normally launch their games pretty, especially on the Switch. They're normally
Well,
pretty.
they normally delay the living wits out of them until it is absolutely perfect, to the point of like stagnating it from the console it's designed for and having to be a baby for the console that's just launched, embryonic like. I don't know. Bobby, do you feel like you're an old school Nintendo stalwart, someone who's got history going all the way back to the NES? Do you feel like Nintendo has built this culture around itself, almost like the Disney of games, where it can literally, whatever it puts out, even if it was basically a dog poo on a cartridge, the Nintendo bump means it's going to be getting at least 20 out of 100 points as far as the critique goes. Is that a thing, or is that just nonsense?
I mean, no, Nintendo can pretty much do whatever they want. They have the little strong community over there. So even if the game is not as promised, fans will overlook it like it's okay, it's no big deal. But if it's like a first party or even third party release that's, on Xbox or PlayStation, people will complain about it because it shouldn't be. You should not have a game that you paid full price for and it's not running normally. It's ridiculous in 2022. You have to have these issues.
I think one of the other sort of issues I've found with Nintendo is that if that game never gets patched, and it'll have some patches, but they're not historically famous for fixing games in life as some of the other platforms, Xbox or PlayStation or PC, have become accustomed to. That's probably not going to be far removed from the same broken mess in about 12 to 18 months' time. Yet when I walk into the local mom and pop shop to buy myself a copy of that, it's still going to be damn near $70 per version. And for that level of pricing, one would expect some patching or at least a quality game out the get-go. Seb, what's your take on that?
I'm right there with you. Like Nintendo never really does price cuts, and the most they'll do is $40. And it's like egregious. Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey are still to this day around that $40 to $60 mark. Depending on what time of year it is. And those games are, even though they're classics, they're old as dirt at this point. I agree right there with you. So I'm looking at Pokemon, and they sold 10 million units right out of the gate for this. 10 million units in less than 7 days, and that is amazing. But that also gives them very little incentive to go back and say, like, hey, let's patch this game and make this the best game it can be in retrospect. Then now they're already like, hey, we have 10 million units worth of money. Now we can go on to the next project and utilize that money and give it to the shareholders. Whereas like fan accountability comes into play when PlayStation puts out a stinker, or whereas Xbox, like the vitriol that we have for Xbox whenever we're like, where is the first party games? I don't feel like we quite see that with Nintendo, just because one, it's Nintendo, and two, it's the nature of the Switch hardware to where like we give a free pass, so to speak, because we're like, it's a Switch. It allows us to play games portable, which is witchcraft. So we kind of give everything a little bit of a pass, But I feel like that mentality should go away a little bit with the creation of the Steam Deck and other forms coming into play, whereas like playing games portable will seem normal now. But right now, it just feels like, I hate to say this, but Bayonetta didn't really come out of the gate swinging with Bayonetta 3, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet comes out in this state. It really just feels like no one talked about the way these games came out lackluster versus a game. Say if Ghost of Tsushima 2 comes out in 3 days and that game comes out and it's a 4 out of 10, we're going to talk about that as being one of the biggest disasters PlayStation has seen in the last 10 years. Pokemon, which is a mainstay for the video game industry as a whole, everyone's mom knows what Pokemon is. Like, that game came out and legitimately has problems. They've issued a couple of bug fixes here or there, but like that game still runs at less than 30 frames per second out on average. And you just get used to that frame rate. Like, I kid you not, the game runs like it's 16 frames per second and you just have to deal with it. And I think if any other game ran like that from any other major first party studio, we would be looking at that like an utter failure.
Digital Foundry would have had their pants down.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing as well, Nintendo, especially with certain things they're doing now, they don't get pulled up on them at all. I mean, you take Nintendo Sports or Switch Sports, for instance, or you take Mario Strikers. These games come out with half the roster in.
Yeah.
Half the roster, and some even a quarter. So you're waiting a year to just try and get the full game, but you get the odd video on YouTube where people will sort of say, oh, I'm disappointed this, disappointed that, but nothing ever gets said about it. And you're thinking, well, I mean, I bought Switch Sports, looked at it, had half a dozen games on, mini games on, and you just thought, this was...
Where's the rest of it?
This is like
one thing I would say about that, though, is that they've managed to get Nintendo has got their, and this is a subject for another day, I'm sure, so we won't dwell on it too long, but Nintendo has got their fingers around the throats of all the influencers. So anyone who claims to be Nintendo specific, you never actually hear them say anything negative about it at all. In fact, they dress it up in many different ways. They probably say that the pop-in and glitches and bits and bobs is nostalgic to an older time of gaming in their review, rather than say that it's broken.
But the funny thing is, if you think about it, a lot of the older games that they tend to play and remaster, and they didn't have any glitches.
No, flawless.
Yeah.
Right? But now they want to have that nostalgic feel. Well, I don't have any glitches on any game I played on the NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo.
GameCube,
even the PlayStation, certain things on PlayStation. But then as the games got harder, more technically advanced, you get more glitches.
Bobby, you and I literally willed on this show Mario Strikers into existence. You actually created it out of thin air, and it was nothing but a pipe dream. Then all of a sudden, boom, it comes out because you said so. And it was not exactly what you wanted it to be. Have you managed to acquire that game yet, or have you just ignored it like the plague?
No, I got it. I played it with Eva. We beat it. That's it. It's done.
Yeah, I've done the same. Mario Golf, pre-ordered that. Played the game. Played it. I played it for I think it was about 7 hours of the story mode. Finished the game. Nothing else to play. That's it.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
I feel like the Strikers on the Wii had much more depth. The GameCube. You could play that for hours. I felt like once we got all the trophies in the game, like the tournaments, that was it. There's no point of going back to it at all.
I can smell another show coming up. Is Nintendo losing its edge? It pulled it out for Zelda.
It's never gonna lose its edge, because people are going to buy. If you took the original Mario just as the regular game and re-released it as the 40th anniversary, and it's the same game, they'll buy it for $70.
And they'll do a limited run of them like they did with the 3D All-Stars. Do a limited run. Yeah. People will just snap them up off the shelves because it's going to be rare. And
anything Nintendo does or has, and they remaster or re-release, the Nintendo fans will pay full price for it without question.
I think the bigger question, or the way the question should be stated, is Nintendo still an S tier developer at that point? Are they still putting out, compared to if you did a tier system to where you did Bethesda, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox Game Studios, you did Ubisoft. Where would you put Nintendo with all their lineups? Where would you put them? Would it be S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and so on and so forth? Because historically speaking, with Breath of the Wild, with Mario Odyssey and such like that, and games like these, we would normally associate those with those games and Nintendo as a whole as a S tier franchise, S2 studio. Now with misses like the sports franchise, with the way they've gone about their sports games, with misses sort of like Pokemon Violet and Pokemon Scarlet, with Bayonetta not coming out of the gate, it's hot. Are they still an S tier developer, or is there a little conversation that they might be on a B to C tier, or even a lower A tier at that point?
I think that they're probably historically they'd claim to be an S tier. They seem to navigate 8 to 16-bit reasonably well. They manage 16 to 32-bit reasonably well. They went into the GameCube with the N64 on the GameCube with some genre-defining games. Could be argued lesser so on the Wii. The Wii U, they had some bangers, but they just didn't have the ground for. They've re-released those on the Switch, and some of those games critical acclaim. Do I think that they've got them in them again for the sequel to Breath of the Wild? It's going to be more of the same, isn't it? It's going to be more Majora's Mask than reinventing the wheel. It's certainly when we go out to have a look at Breath of the Wild 2, it's going to be circular in shape and roll down the hill much like its predecessor. So I don't know. Have they got it in them again? Have we got the patience? I suppose we have, haven't we? But before we hit the last bit of community feedback, Seb?
I think you brought up an interesting point just now, whereas I wonder with the conversation of Game of the Year this year, a lot of the conversation was Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok. But God of War Ragnarok, like a lot of the critics out there said, hey, that's more of the same from 2018. Are we going to get that same discourse and that same dialogue with Zelda if it is just more of Breath of the Wild? Like, is there going to be a whole conversation about like, hey, this game is the exact same, or at least very similar to God of War, but only with a couple of additional features? Are we going to give it that same dialogue there? But another
again,
point,
I feel it'll get a pass.
Yeah,
it'll be hailed as the second coming of Jesus, won't it?
Mm.
And another point, and I think this is a question for the panel here. What is your top 5 Nintendo Switch games that wasn't just a port? What is the 5 defining Nintendo Switch? Yeah, what is the defining 5 Nintendo Switch games from this generation that wasn't just a port of an older game? And I think that is where you start to see like the conversation go of like, oh, Nintendo's generation here. There's a conversation to be had.
I mean, I love I've got a Switch Lite and I've got a OLED Switch, and I love my Switches. They're brilliant. I love playing the games on them. But you can see the difference now. You go back to your PS5 or your Xbox Series X and you pop a game in. Technically, I mean, I'm playing Harvestella. It's my main game at the moment. But you look at the difference between that running, or you go and drop in Callisto Protocol or something like that. They are light years behind. I know it's a different system. I know it's a different idea of a system because it has to run in that handheld mode. But I do think for especially Nintendo going forward, they need some more powerful hardware. I think. I mean, we're still running the Switch for HD. Whereas people have moved up to 4K. I know it's not all the be all and end all, but there is a big difference between the systems now, and I think rather than keep trying to push the Switch and releasing these big open world glitchy games that aren't meeting the hardware, maybe they need a new hardware so then they can release the games in a decent state.
But Nintendo's never going to do that because Nintendo's always going to do that until the money is not being made.
Yeah.
Once they start not making the money, they'll figure something else out. And then when that system comes out, all the games you didn't play on the Switch will just be revamped, remastered for this new generation of hardware.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same cycle.
That's gross. Well, let's draw a line under this. Let's sign out with one last thought from Bada Binkster. Now, don't hate at me because he's literally come to me in the Discord and asked me to read his comments out like this. This is his personal choice. I have not played it, to be fair, but my brother owns a copy and he told me to buy it as it's good. I mentioned the issues I had read online and he said he had absolutely no problems and not to listen to them. I think Retro Gamer Thomas, aka Retro Keys Thomas, he's the right community are more forgiving. So that's Bada Binkster, a resident Italian man. He doesn't speak like that, but for some reason I once did, and now it's stuck, and that's how we stick with it. Sounds like Mario, and to be fair, he's saying that the game's all good, or his brother's Luigi's saying that it's bizarre because Bada Binkster's name is Luigi. Maybe his brother's name is Mario. Mario says it is a great game. So, the Pokemon community and the Nintendo community, they don't get a game every once in a blue moon. So maybe they just turned a blind eye to it all to feel like they're playing a AAA game on their AAA portable hand gaming system, I don't know. I think the long and short to summarize is it's that bare a harvest over on the Switch right now that if you're a serious gamer that's been following Nintendo since the NES, and you've grown up with the games as you have grown, you're not going to be liking that. And I shouldn't think the Switch is getting much of a look in if you're a AAA Nintendo game player only. You're sort of praying Breath of the Wild 2 is going to come out, just so you've got a reason to charge that piece of plastic up. Do they get a free pass? I think we could argue here, yes, they do. I think Seb's point about if Ghost of Tsushima came out and it was a stinking pile of garbage and it got 2 out of 10, I think we'd be parading around the streets asking for one of the PlayStation gurus' heads on a stick. Whereas they can release this mess, but it's tied up with people's nostalgia. It's tied up with people that if they've only got the Switch, and if you've only got the Switch, I feel for you, but there's younger gamers out there and maybe Nintendo veterans that do. You're just desperate for something to play. And therefore, you're probably going to forgive everything. If you've got all the systems, then maybe like us, you're a little bit less inclined to give a pass to something that caused Seb to get, 50 hours into the game? It glitch and then start again?
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
You should have donned the black fedora and the purple neck scarf, tombstoned it, much like your friend Stingray. On that note, thank you to Seb for that wonderful idea and script, which sent us down a veritable rabbit hole of Nintendo hatred, but then guilt and all the other things that go with the emotions that one experiences when a childhood hero suddenly realize he's not quite who you thought. Talking to childhood heroes, we weren't ever quite sure who or what they are. Seb, it wasn't that long ago that you met what can only be described as our childhood hero, incarnate Stingray, the man, the myth, the legend. He appears to different people in different ways, and every time you see him, he's something a little bit different. People have been waiting on the edges of their seats to see quite how the Ray appears to you in the flesh this time round. I mean, I don't know if it's coincidence or what, but since you've been on the show, the boots dried up a little bit. I'm hoping it's seasonal. But I think you have found a nemesis in the Ray, and he and you. Quite where this is going to end, I don't know. Probably like WrestleMania 12 or something, but we can only hope for that as an outcome. It's time for a peek in what we affectionately call Stingray's boot. What's nestled between some counterfeit nappies and a dodgy copy of Battlefriend All this week. These are the new release highlights for the week December 18th to December 25th, 2022. Listeners, these are out in digital, physical, or will be by the time this podcast in your feed, but could be region dependent. To me, he's arrived just in front of me in what looks to me like an aged Japanese car, Nissan Bluebird. It's got rust all over it and a collection of baby wipes on the passenger seat floor. I don't know what they're from, probably from Wayne Ray or probably from a clean-up from a nocturnal activity. One can only shudder at the thought, really. Boots, pop, shake, wow, whoa. I mean, we're all waiting here now. We know how Bobby, is the Ray appearing to you as you've always seen him, or is he looking different this week?
Nah, pretty much the same. Got the Santa hat on. Looks a little, maybe a little cleaned up, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
but pretty much
some,
same
early bonus toiletries. Maybe he's decided to take himself off to the public bathroom and have a little bit of a wash in the sink.
Yeah, he's excited too.
What's known in Scotland as a whore's bath.
Mm-hmm. We call it here too.
Okay, awesome. GT.
Yeah.
What manifestation is the Ray for you?
It's very different this week. He looks like someone you'd seen in sort of a scene of Point Break. He's sort of got Bermuda shorts on, flip-flops. He's doing the old surfy fingers, and he keeps calling me bra. So I don't know what's going on with Ray, whether he's going on a winter holiday or what, I don't know. But yeah, Wayne Ray's got a surfboard as well. Yeah, this is strange.
Oh, he's got a surfboard.
Strange.
I see Wayne Ray as a surfboard. Well, there you go. Okay. Seb, everyone's waiting on bated breath. How has the Ray manifested himself to you today?
So as I was gearing up to do the podcast, it was early in the morning here, and I happened to feel like I saw a figure in the darkness, and I looked over, and coincidentally, it was one of the mini Christmas trees that we have in the house. But when I first saw the figure, it looked like the Ray as I last put him. He was a short-legged man, looked very similar to the penguin from Batman, where he was a short-legged man, but he also had the attire and the build of the Undertaker from professional wrestling. But with the mask of mankind from wrestling. But I think the scariest thing about him, there's two scary things, but one, it looked like he had the Venom suit and the Venom straps into his chest. It's very similar to the Batman and Robin movie back in the day that you might remember, the all-time classic Batman movie. And then I believe the scariest thing in his hand was he was holding up a copy of Bloodborne, which is a game that haunts me to this day because I've never beaten Bloodborne, and I always think at least once, maybe even twice a week about I should go back and play that game. And then it just sits on my PS5 right now and is my Hall of Shame game that I will probably never go back to because I don't want to get my beep kicked over and over again like I did with Bloodborne. So the Ray is just a short-legged man who dresses similar to the Undertaker, has a very muscle-bound build, has Bane's kind of toxin strapped to him with Bloodborne in his hand, and he every time the lights go out, I kind of see just a spitting image of him, and then when I turn it on, he's not there anymore.
So he's basically your Krampus.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. That's exactly what he is. He haunts me, man. He haunts me.
Well, he must have been busy. I mean, he can be anywhere at any time. He can be across, much like Father Christmas, he can be in every geographical location simultaneously. That's one of his skills. But while he's been busy haunting you with his disformed body, disproportionate body,
like a bowling
with a copy of blood, an upside down bowling pin.
Yeah, exactly.
While he's been haunting you with his new visage, or your interpretation of his visage, his empire's running a little bit lean because I've popped the boot, and next to a rusted old tin of de-icer and what looks like a faded summer memory of a used prophylactic, there's basically a copy of Naraka Blade Point for the Xbox One. Comes out December 22nd. By default, this makes it all of our mummies, and that technically puts it in the running for Game of the Year, UCP official stamp. Nakara Blade Point is an up to 60-player PvP mythical action game experience with martial arts-inspired melee combat, gravity-defying mobility, vast arsenals of melee and ranged weapons, legendary customizable heroes with epic abilities. No, Ray. No, Ray. No, Ray, you can't carry on like this. This might even be a free-to-play game. How are you meant to extract money? I don't know what you do. You've got mouths to feed. It's Wayne Ray's. All right, Ray, pay it back off. Back off. All right. Okay. Just to keep the coffers rolling in, I've promised that we'll all take, as always, a DVD out the back of the boot. Can be a VHS, call it what you want. I'm taking... I tell you what, Ray. Just calm down. I'm going to take that bizarre. No, Ray, I don't want that. Okay, Ray, I'll do it. Okay, I'm taking it. Fine, be like that. See if I care. I'm taking Ulysses 31, and although it never actually got a release on UMD, I'm taking it on UMD just to keep Wayne in food. RGT, what's your mummy DVD choice, seeing as you've got a gun to your throat for Nakara Blade Point on the Xbox?
I'm going with a film that actually only came out this week, but Ray's probably had it on VHS for about 6 months prior to release. And that's a film I saw this week called Violent Night, and I would love a copy of that. So yes, I'm going to have this very bad pirated counterfeit copy that I'll probably watch and see someone get up and go to the loo because it's filmed in the cinema on a 1990s camcorder. But yeah,
he sends Wayne Ray in with a stovepipe hat and a Game Boy camera. So good luck with that one.
Yeah, so that'll probably be the black and white version. Yeah, I'm going to have Violent Night because that is a superb film.
I thought that described the sort of no, I won't go there.
Steady.
Bobby, why not? What are you going to have out the boot, friend?
Picked up Fat Man. Sorry, Mel Gibson.
I've heard that's good.
It's really good. And you know what?
I see a theme here, and one that I missed.
I mean, that's pretty much kind of the face of Stingray for me, always been.
Wow. Okay.
It's like Mel Gibson. He's a good looking dude.
Ray,
he's just a weird guy.
He defies all expectations and explanations, does Ray? Seb, if you're not too intimidated by the Ray Mafia and the weirdly disproportioned Stingray in your reality, what classic stroke, or what are you taking home out the boot movie wise?
Well, Ray told me, and he kicked in my door, and told me, it is the holiday season. You best represent me well. And
wow.
So he was just like, you need a Christmas movie, Sebastian, and you also need this Christmas movie to have action in it. I demanded of thee, so shall you deliver. And I decided
so much law.
Yeah, for sure. So I decided I was going to, follow Ray's example and follow the law of the letter. And I'm going to recommend 2 Christmas movies for everyone. First is one of the best Christmas movies of all time is Die Hard, and yeah, it is
Brilliant.
Die Hard and
safe
the
bet.
Best.
Yeah, and another one is a very underrated Christmas movie. It is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robin Downey Jr. And I say it's a Christmas movie because there is, a Santa costume in the movie, and it takes place around Christmas time. So I think I'll go with that one. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Die Hard.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Now there's me picking an 80s cartoon, feeling like I totally missed the memo. No wonder Ray looked at me, and then Wayne turned round and his eyes turned to lasers and lopped the lower half of my body off, simultaneously cauterizing me at the same time. All I am now is an upper torso. What am I going to do with that information? I don't know. I'm hoping that Wayne will reverse the process before the next episode. With that, I turn around and there was the sound of a Tombstone power driver. But when I looked to focus where the sound had originated from, I basically just saw a crackle of electricity on the pebbles in front of me. Because that's how Ray operates. Mr. Ray, Stingray. He has many names. Some say that he's even Santa. But before we bid you goodbye and then all gather round Christmas tree with a mince pie, I didn't know that was going to rhyme, but it did, to record our festive Christmas special fireside chat, I have to ask you in turn, starting with Bobby, what are you hoping to play?
Probably just want to finish up the DLC from Zombie Army 4. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's a Christmas hat in the game I have on, so it's festive enough. I don't really have anything else. I mean, I may start something. I don't know, but that's 100% going to happen.
Okay. Seb, let's close out with our American cousins so they can finish the American office, close it up for Christmas. What are you going to be playing?
I'm gonna dive into The Witcher 3 fully, see if that game really clicks with me, and if I can, see what all the hubbubaloo was about, if this is indeed one of the greatest RPGs of all time. So I kind of want to determine that, and then I will finish the game High on Life. I don't know if y'all been playing this recently. It is the game from the Rick and Morty creator. He
I actually
created
stumbled across it earlier. It looks crazy, but it didn't review that well. How's it actually play?
It is a strong 7 out of 10. It is a maybe even 6 out of 10, depending on like whether or not the combat gets repetitive for you. But it plays like Doom and Ratchet and Clank kind of fused together with Rick and Morty. That's exactly kind of how it plays. If you played the latest Doom games, then you kind of like know how the combat already feels in this game. And if you played Ratchet and Clank and know how that weapons kind of like feel is and how you have a different variety of weapons, then you played this game before. That you mix those two elements together, and then you mix in that story, that world creation that Roiland is like popular for with Rick and Morty and Solar Opposites. Then you know what this game is, because like the game's charm is not the gameplay. It's like the characters you meet and the world building around it. So if you're looking for like a good sci-fi game that has that Rick and Morty spin on it, I'd recommend it. If not, then this isn't going to be for you. Okay.
RGT, what are you hoping to play this gaming week?
You can probably guess what it's going to be. I'm a bit limited with time with work at the moment. That's my very busy period at work, but that's going to be Harvestella, I think. I really want to try and get that wrapped up a bit, ready to start playing some games at Christmas.
Ah, damn it, sir. What a fine way. Me, I'm going to dive back into that, much like my brain, that mess of games on the floor. Subnautica becoming at one with Little Big Workshop, becoming at one with F1, becoming at one with God of War Ragnarok, becoming at one with Callisto Protocol. Sooner or later, out that Hellstrom, one of those is going to get done. Throat chop, tombstone, par driven. Through a table. Someone's got to finish one of these games at some point in time, and that someone is me. Probably going to end up being F1 at this point. Or knowing me,
No.
I'm going to rock back up next week. Oh, Subnautica. Oh, let me tell you. I'm 80 hours in. I've lost all sense of reality. No, that's something. I've found sense of all reality. So yeah, that's me done. And I suppose a bumper episode. Nice to have all four of us, like a brace of arrows on the back of Robin Hood's back, shooting through for you guys. So thank you for having us. As we say, that's all we have time for this week, listeners. As always, thank you for your time. I look forward to the pleasure of speaking to you again next week. Until then, happy gaming. And remember, there's nothing wrong with being given the unofficial controller. It's what you do with it that counts. See you soon, guys.
See you guys.
Peace out.
Peace.